So the show's over, and I can't tell if I'm frustrated more or relieved more. And I really feel like this needs to be discussed. So let's dive into it. What's up, my know-it-alls? I am, of course, your host, Mr. Know-it-all. Welcome back to the Mr. Know-it-all Show. This week, we're going to be finishing off the Acolyte. And it's funny, my immediate reaction is to sit here and go, thank God. But the truth is, I don't know if I'm frustrated more, because the last half of the whole season has been they've shoved everything into the end. And it's hard to be happy about the things that work, because the storytelling has been all over the road. And there's people online that keep asking me, can you explain? I've literally walked it through with you. I don't know how much more to explain. I walked through storytelling literally while I was on vacation, and I wanted to, because I needed to help explain narrative storytelling, and people still don't understand. I do have some stuff at the very end of this about some responses. If you were responding to me on TikTok and you wanted to hear some direct responses, I'm going to save that for the very end of the show. So if you want to jump down into the description, there you're going to find some time codes, and it'll be right there where I talk to some of my TikTok fans, because they are some of the most engaging fans ever. The other thing I want to say is, if you guys have comments or you want to talk about things, jump into the comments. I love it. However, I'm going to shoot a new rule. If all you want to do is bash without discourse, you don't actually talk about anything, I'm not going to entertain that discussion. I will happily, that doesn't mean you have to like the show. By all means, I don't necessarily love the show. I like things in the show, but I don't know but it's all a bunch of really nice pieces that never really coalesced into a whole that I can agree with. So if you have actual constructive stuff to say, because I'm down for hearing it, by all means, comment. We'll talk. I love engaging with the community that way. Know-it-all Nation knows that I'm here to have discourse and have discussion, because there's nothing better than when you guys tell me stuff. And so I do feel like there is a conversation happening. And when I try to bring my thoughts, understand something. I'm not necessarily a subject matter expert in how TV shows are made. I have made TV shows. I've actually made 2 TV shows and worked on 6. So at the end of the day, I fully understand how storytelling should function. I've been in 2 different writers' rooms, ran my own writers' room at one point for a pilot series that I had contracted with Netflix, but that ended up, because of the pandemic, falling through. So just in case some people were wondering what my bona fides are, because I've had people out there going, well, how many shows have you made? I've actually made some shows. That's one of the reasons why my show looks as good as it does, is because all of this is left over from when I used to make shows. I'm going to right off rip. This is some of the best choreography and the best fight scenes I've ever seen. We've gotten to see stuff with the Force that we've never seen anywhere else. And I loved it. The entire fight scene between Saul and Keimer, because I guess that's actually how his name is pronounced. Now that I'm actually in the middle of a fan edit of this whole thing, and details will follow when I'm finished, because I've rewatched the whole thing, and there's actually elements that do work when you string the whole thing together. Once you get past the editing, then the story narrative, the things that fall short, really do show up. But anyway, yeah, this was amazing stuff. That's the frustrating part. The parts of this that work great. It's no different than Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi. I don't care if you like the movie or not. I like the movie as a standalone thing. I've always said that when it comes to the sequel trilogy, The Force Awakens and the Rise of Skywalker live unto themselves, and they're missing that middle movie, whatever that middle movie was. That doesn't mean either one of them is better, but I just mean those two connect on a level. When you open the movie with literally Poe saying somehow the Emperor returned, there's a story in the middle that we missed. The Last Jedi was excellently executed, well written. It just didn't belong in that trilogy. It belongs someplace else. Probably in Rian Johnson's trilogy. That's never going to happen. Anyway, so that's the same thing with this. these episodes that worked very well. The fight scene episode was wonderful. Episode, I think it was 5, possibly. Yeah, episode 5 was great. That whole fight scene thing, I think some of the dialogue got sort of stiff toward the end. But then you go to this one, and this one also worked great. There are people out there who took issue with my comparison of narrative structure and were like, yeah, because we've never seen stories about, what about it? It's a mystery. It's a mystery. There's no part of this that's a mystery. Let's be real. At no point is this a mystery. They're telling you it's a mystery, but characters aren't figuring things out. Characters are just moving because at the end of the day, to have a mystery, you have to have something that you're looking for, something that you're trying to find out. And at no point is anyone genuinely trying to find things out. They're looking for May. They know who did whatever the thing is, and they're looking for them. That's it. It's more of a chase than anything, a pursuit movie, than it is an actual mystery. The mystery is the stuff that happened in the past. Saul knows that stuff. Everybody who's dead obviously knows it too, but they're all dead now. So this week's episode starts with, we go back to Planet Unknown with Keimer and Osha rather, having a discussion. Osha, by the way, who has somehow completely been okay with having this discussion with a man who just murdered people she knows very well. People, dare I say, she called friends and made connections with. Not long ago, she was saying goodbye to Jackie. May her memory live on. Okay, and watch dude murder her on top of murdering her childhood friend in our good boy Yord. Okay, as well as all the Jedi who were just decimated. Okay, and now she's here. I understand half the internet wanted to rise up and fight for her agency last week, because that was all I read about, was people who were like, how could you say she's being groomed? How could you say she's this? How could you say she's that? I don't. That's just the poor writing, because there's nothing about any of this feels earned. That's the biggest issue that I find myself at. So she makes a turnabout, and now she's just there talking with dude. We go to her wearing the helmet, and apparently they have this deep dark side thing that is because of dude his eyes, Keimer's eyes turning black, I assume is associated in some way with her upbringing and how she was created. I guess they don't really make those connection points for us. We're just supposed to surmise and assume. I know people will sit here and argue with me and say, you say you want us to show you, not tell you. There is a measure of exposition that is always required, a measure of it. You can't go one way or the other. You can't go all exposition and you can't go all showing people stuff, because you haven't laid groundwork for any of this, one, to matter, and two, to make sense the way it's supposed to. When you tell a story, you string the pieces together in such a way that when you get to the next knot in that string, it's satisfying. That's my problem. So this whole big thing of she's breathing in the thing, very Vader-like, and all of a sudden he sit here and he tries to take the helmet, this and that, and she goes, and she stops and has this whole thing and whatever else. I don't know why. You haven't dropped any hints as to why. Other than the fact she saw her sister in the first episode, and there was subsequent visioning type stuff, and the trauma that we know she's gone through. You don't explain to us any of this. She's had to this point no episodes of that type. And you haven't really shown the connection to that point. In fact, the most interesting thing about these two characters, Osha and May, you barely explore. Even here, which is that they are apparently two halves of the same person. Now, I'm sure somewhere on Leslie Headland's writer's room board, there is it says season 2, blah, blah, and maybe the climax of season 2 is going to be supposed to be them merging back together, coming back together. Trust me, I'll get into the end of this episode as well. But for right now, there's nothing interesting. So when that moment happens with the helmet, I don't care because I don't understand where it's coming from. You're showing us cool things. It's like Leslie Headland had a series of really cool scenes in mind. And when you get to those scenes, they gel, they look good, and it ticks us all off. Because there's nothing, because how did we get to something so awesome from all the lame duck nonsense? Can anyone tell me that? If all your response in the comments to me is going to be well, you just don't get it, or you just don't understand, or whatever else, bro, stop. You come at me with intelligence, you come at me with knowledge. I am all about it. I want to know stuff. The name Mr. Know-It-All is not meant for me to feed my narcissism, because I am a recovering narcissist. The name Mr. Know-It-All is meant to say, I am looking to know it all. I seek knowledge. And conversely, I want to help you guys become know-it-alls. I want to help you know stuff too. That's how we get to my name. So help me understand. Walk me through it. Because as we're going to discuss in the TikTok section at the end, I absolutely do listen. And you guys say some great stuff. And I fully intend to walk through a bunch of that stuff with you. So now, when you go past that part, you get to May. Suddenly, in this, and it started the previous episode, not episode 7, but episode 6. It started episode 6 with the switch that happened, and has continued on here. The two characters have essentially switched paths. I said to Mrs. Know-It-All way back in episode 6, I said, watch, Osha's going to end up being the Acolyte. And sure enough, she does. So Osha gets a vision of what's going to happen in the future. She gets a vision of May holding dude's sword, Saul's sword, and killing him without a weapon. So chummy, her and Keimer decide, all right, we're going to go together. Let's go together. And that's it. They're just together. And they go, and because she knows where it's at. It's back on Brindok. Twinkie Jedi comes in back. We go back to Coruscant. Twinkie Jedi's there again. Arguably one of the most annoying Jedis I've ever met in my life, seen on screen ever. And he continues to somewhat just fail on many, many levels when it comes to his character is literally there as an exposition machine to transition us between things. We get introduced to a senator who is literally the least consequential and least interesting character ever. We find the culmination of these political machinations. The problem is all of those political machinations have only been to this point on the periphery. That's not a B plot, by the way. Before all of you are like, that's what you call a B plot. No, it's not. B plots and A plots, generally speaking, when you have two things, weave into one another story-wise. Great example of this, Andor. Every time you get into the B plot stuff, when it comes to Mon Mothma, when it comes to not Stellan Skarsgård. Yeah, Stellan Skarsgård. When you get to his stuff, that's woven in because those elements interact with the main story elements on a regular basis. Other than the fact that Vernier sends them on their missions and she's trying to keep some stuff quiet of what's going on, those things are on the periphery. The problem is they don't connect enough for me to care. Now, I see where it was going now. That doesn't make it more satisfying. And those of you who are like, see, this is where it was going the whole time. Maybe. But you seed that better. You make it interesting. You introduce that senator character earlier. In fact, when I'm doing my fan edit, I think I will probably move that discussion sooner into the narrative. Because I feel like that's the big issue is I'm trying to reestablish some stuff. I had a commenter on YouTube who seems to finally understand it. And it was wonderful to hear, which was, these are not what I keep calling rules, okay, are actually audience hacks. And that's fair. These are tried and true elements that storytellers for years, decades, centuries even, have used because it's how you pull an audience with you. It's how you carry an audience from A to B to C. It's the way you tell a story. what I've been calling narrative structure. They're not necessarily hard and fast rules, although they're taught in universities and colleges and film writing and storytelling and manuscript writing classes worldwide forever. But they're elements that say, hey, this is how I'm going to tell this. This is how we tell a story. This is how you keep the audience's attention. And when those elements aren't there, because we've seen them everywhere else, it doesn't work. So that's what I mean by storytelling beats. So the political stuff didn't matter to me because you haven't built it to matter to me. It's literally been, I need a bridge between, it's always felt like I need a bridge between Osha and May and this scene and this scene. We're going to throw in Rhaenyra and, oh, she's on the way to the blah, blah, blah. We're going to drop a little seed, a little thing. Oh, she gets a tummy ache and she feels sick because she apparently in the books, which none of us have read, has a power. I mean, a lot of people have read, forgive me. A lot of you have read it, obviously. But I'm saying the vast majority of us who are sitting, like the people that I interact with on a regular basis online, I haven't read them. Now, some people have recommended some audiobooks, and I do intend to get into them because I was a big EU audiobook and fan of reading those things. So I love extra stories. So I fully intend to jump into the High Republic now. Some audiobooks were recommended by a gentleman on TikTok. Thank you, sir. And I fully intend to dive into them and I want to know more about these characters. So in that respect, I suppose they're doing their job. But you shouldn't have to do homework. And ever. Comic book movies shouldn't make you do it. Star Wars shouldn't make you do it. This thing needs to stand on its own feet or it can't stand. Now, once you get past this political thing, you end up with the chase, which is they eventually get there and they get back to Brendok. And now it's the haunted of it's the voices, it's the whole 9 yards. And both May and Osha have disappeared from Saul and Khymer. And Khymer himself even at one point disappears. And so everyone's sort of pursuing everyone else. The Jedi are on their way there. And so it's all coming to a head. And you get into this amazing moment where Saul and Khymer meet. And Saul's like, I will defeat you. And I will say, Khymer's got a kick butt line. He said basically, yeah, unless she gets you first. And I was like, wow, right on, man. It's deep. It sounds really cool. And then Mrs. Know-It-All afterwards reminded me, she goes, no. She goes, don't fall into that trap. It sounds cool, but they haven't earned cool. And I went, you're right. But that's the fan in me. For everybody who thinks I'm a hater who's trying to hate bait or rage bait, which whatever, I love this stuff so much that I'm willing to be handled. I used to hate being handled. Handled is when you play sad music at a sad moment, like you use a needle drop, and all of a sudden everyone in the theater is like, because you wanted me to cry like that. Same thing. When I hear that line from Khymer, I'm like, but the truth is there's no substance to it. It sounded awesome. Now, mind you, the fight scene, even Mrs. Know-It-All had to admit, the fight scene was dope. When at one point, when they're sitting there and dude, like, he kind of cuts his thing, backs up, and he throws him the two lightsabers at him, and he like swings around and does this whole like Avatar: The Last Airbender style thing with the Force. I was like, oh. That was such great stuff. Seeing unique new ways of using the Force. This is what I'm talking about when I say they seeding some good things in general, but they're not putting them together right. Because that was awesome. The fight scenes in this have been next level rather, and just unbelievable bar none. I'm not gonna lie. The Wookiee fight scene was dope, more or less. The group fight scene where we introduced Khymer was dope. Just all these pieces have been really excellent. They're just not coming together quite right. So then we get this moment where Saul has to face his demons, and you get Osha, now the opposite of her sister, because she's now wearing dark. And May is now wearing the lighter color. And Osha or rather, dude says to May, you kill him, this and that, blah, blah. And she says, no, I want him to pay. This is where, what I do like, and I'm going to compliment this part of the story. This section feels like Star Wars. Why? When because May has been angry, and Keimer has fed that anger, but it was righteous indignation because she doesn't actually want revenge. May wants justice. And that is what the Jedi are about. That is what the good guys, if you will, are about. She wants justice. Now, I see the allegory at play here. I see I see what's going on here. It's the classic, this is a dirty cop, but I don't want revenge and kill him. I want him to pay for what he's done. She's like, I want him to stand in front of the Senate. I want him to confess you could literally see this same exact scene done in real world context with a police officer in front of a judge. Police officer's been doing dirty stuff, whatever. Like this scene is not unique or original. You just redressed it, and that's fine. All writing is essentially that. So trust me, I'm okay with that. That isn't even a criticism of any kind. That's genuine. I see what you did there. Good job. Because everyone's like, you hate stuff, you hate to hate. I don't. I really don't. I hate bad things, but I love great things. And this moment was great because I felt like that was the truth of her anger. Keimer was exploiting her anger, but the truth of it came from a place of righteous indignation. It came from a place of wrong has been done. You did that wrong. I want you to face some sort of punishment, not the easy out of summary judgment and death. But wait, there's more. Osha decides, on the other hand, nah. She wants him to admit it, and he admits it. And she grabs the thing, and they made Saul so pathetic. They framed Saul in a way, framed is the right way to put it, in a way where he embodied everything we loved about Jedi. We called him the Qui-Gon of the show. And then he proceeds to, I did it all for you. I wanted you to be safe. I wanted you to have what you... He felt what was right and wrong. Because Jedi are clearly the arbiters of what is right and wrong. Or are they? According to this narrative. So then she does something super unique. There's people out there who are going to argue because we've seen bleeding of a kyber crystal take a lot of different time, but so she begins to bleed the kyber crystal, and then when faced with was faced with Keimer, you get to physically see the manifestation of her turn to the dark side, because she ignites the lightsaber blue and it begins to crack and become red, and you see the blue replaced with the red. It's a wonderful, it's a classic writing thing. Don't tell me these people don't know the right way to write. The editing of by the way, I'm going somewhere with that concept. They know how to write. Leslie Headland and her writers, you're going to get it from me right now. Here's your pull quote. Leslie Headland and her writers know how to cook. The editing of this thing and what they've been forced to do, that's where this fell short. There's a universe in which this whole thing is maybe 4 solid hours, a 4-part miniseries like Obi-Wan was, part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, and each one is an hour, and each one is solid. Each one has the beginning, the middle, and end that should, and it's solid. There is a version of this out there. Because the elements that come in strong are strong. The problem is they're strung together very poorly. The connective tissue is bad. So Osha gets tired of hearing him talk. She chokes him out and kills him eventually without using a weapon. Thus, she's already stepping into the role of the Acolyte. May helps them all escape. They get back to the Brendog, to the tree, the big yellow tree, the very beginning of this whole thing. And at that point, he says, I can erase her memory because they're going to leave May behind. May and Osha have effectively switched places completely now, in that he's gonna wipe May's mind, and she has agreed to come train with him. They never address the fact that the two girls are one person. And again, I'm sure that's somewhere on Leslie Edlund's writing board that says, hey, you're going to be this thing. Okay, fine. I would have preferred to have seen that be how we get to the Acolyte. I would have preferred to have seen the yin and yang, the juxtaposition, the two people, somehow there on Brendock, that gets resolved. And now she goes into the next season, if there's going to be a next season, as a singular person who's at war with herself internally, because she still has to come to terms with whatever else, all these pieces that are inside of her. And maybe you get, throughout the next season, you get parts of them that are talking and you get to see what happens, the interplay in her own head. Okay? That's what it means to be a writer, by the way. You come up with good stuff that makes sense and measures together. So we then get to the cover-up. Oh, they confirm that apparently Keimer absolutely was Venera's original Padawan or someone she trained a long time ago and left or whatever else. But she thought he was dead. He wears the helmet. That's why he wears the helmet. He wears the helmet because you can't detect him and you can't get to him that way. And so, but unfortunately, he had the helmet off. She detects him the minute they land. So now we know there's that connection. Everyone's like espousing how great Venera is, but the truth is she's just like everybody else. She's faulty. And just in the same way Indara lied, Venera populates this whole story with another lie. She makes Saul the enemy of this whole story. Everyone now knows why. Nobody knows of the rise of the Sith. Nobody knows because it's all one big cover-up. Yeah. And then we get the button. And the button is the biggest middle finger in the world because the button is the most self-serving thing about the show. They have dressed this thing up in the trappings of Star Wars to the point that they even give us Yoda, which, by the way, apparently that man's never had, in 1,000 years has never had, or 900 years has never had hair in his life. Not really. He's got this, whatever. And so we see Yoda. Ta-da! We see him right as the camera pans as we need to talk about a situation.
We need to talk.
There's so many holes in this thing as a Star Wars thing, but at the end of the day, there you go. Now you know. And if no one's out the battle, you have to know it all yourself. What is an Olenix for this episode only? This episode only, I believe firmly, is at its best, is a 7 out of 10. Why is it a 7 out of 10? It's 7 out of 10 just like last week because though there are many things that I like, you did them badly. And you don't get points for that. I feel like the things that you did that are good are not outshined by the fact that you connected no tissue, you dragged along, nothing was connected well, storytelling-wise. By all means, comment below. Let me know what you thought. Let me know your thoughts on the whole thing. Do you see the same angle I see? Are you understanding the stuff that I saw, or am I way off? And if I'm off, hey, walk me through it. I'm down, man. That's called conversation. I'm down for discourse. Now it's time to go through some stuff. So first thing is, I had someone who sits here and says, I had people on online, both actually in a couple places, both on YouTube and on TikTok, who pointed out like, oh, so the show's not good because you don't say it's good. Understand something. Yes, I am a fan of this stuff, but I am also a critic. My job is to criticize. Now, there are things I criticize less because I like them, and I hold them up, and they are done well. There's things I criticize more because even if I like them, they are not executed well. This falls under the latter part. There are a lot of wonderful elements in this, but my primary criticism, as it has always been, is they are not assembled well. It is a very messy show, and it's a messy show that tries to make assumptions that are neither educated or earned. And by that I mean Star Wars is Star Wars, but you don't get the free pass just because you're Star Wars. You still have to tell me a good story. Marvel's the same way. Okay, the Secret Invasion, I hate it, start to finish. there were wonderful elements in it, but they couldn't pull it together well. Okay? Literally, that's how this works. I'm a critic. My job is to criticize. This isn't rage bait. Now, I'm not like Star Wars Theory or some other people out there or whatever who his whole thing is Star Wars. So he talks about Star Wars all the time and everything. I don't. I talk about film and TV, primarily film and TV that I like, primarily film and TV that's focused, that's in the pop culture zeitgeist. That's fine. But at the end of the day, I am a critic. I am not just here as a fan commentator. There's a big difference. I'm here as a fan critic. Commentators just tell you their bit and that's it. And you don't like it, oh well, F you. That's not me. I'm a critic. I'm going to tell you what I like. I'm going to tell you what I don't like. I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to explain my opinion. You don't have to share my opinion. That's perfectly okay. I need you guys to understand that. I don't hate you for liking something. Please don't hate me for disliking something, or vice versa. Okay? We can all play together. When I used to hang out with my friends after a movie, or we'd go to whatever nearby restaurant or something and talk about the movie, not everybody agreed with everyone. People would be like, "Oh, you're crazy, this and that, blah, 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 maybe throw a French fry at me, whatever." But at the end of the day, we were just like, it's all good. But we're still friends. We still watched the movies again and again when they came out later on in physical media or live streaming or whatever. But then we get into some other things. M33 Models on TikTok says, "I bet you won't post a video admitting that you changed your mind because it's not rage baity enough." What he's talking about is coming from the Chan man who said, "LOL, he's tired, scared, homesick teenage Padawan," talking about Torben, my criticisms last week. "He folded under the pressure. It's not unheard of." He's absolutely right. My response to him was, okay, this take I can accept. You didn't try to attack me for having thoughts. Thank you. And I agree with you. I do. Torben cracked under the pressure. Absolutely. M33, totally I agree with that idea. It doesn't change the fact, though, that we have been introduced certain... You know what? That's going to take me to my next comment. Sorry. Then we get to why I realized I've actually had a problem with this show. Again, nothing to do with any of the woke nonsense or the woke police stuff. This comment comes from T-Bird Guy 1. "As a fellow blurred or nerd of color, I feel exactly the same. This show has crooked Jedi cops, something I never wanted or needed from Star Wars. This ended the escapism that Star Wars is supposed to be and tried to inject direct real-world colonialism and oppression, which is fine if done right. But used the historically good guys, and in so doing made them pedestrian and small and not heroic. It removes the only people we have to root for and pretends we never should have rooted for them in the first place, and preaches we were wrong to ever idolize them." What an absolute disrespect of what Lucas built. I'm not looking for pushback on that. I'm just expressing what someone commented, okay? Then, when anyone complains about the issue of the show, we're called bigots or homophobes by the cast and writing staff. I mean, I've seen a lot of that. That's true. They are purposefully ignoring us or gaslighting us, and the media at large is running with the tiny fraction of racist trolls and bots, and painting anyone who doesn't like it as a horrible person. How can we ever improve if all it does is pat itself on the back and ignore anyone who says, this is not good. This is bad, actually. The show broke my heart for that very reason. Now, hey, you can love deconstruction. I get it. And I've seen more than one comment out there, people like that on X or other places, who are like, hey, thank you so much. This is a great deconstruction and whatever else. That's great. If that's what you want, awesome. That's never what I signed up for Star Wars for. It isn't why I go to Star Trek either. It isn't why I watch these things. I watch these things to get away from real life. So when you want to inject real life into these things, you miss the point of them. You missed why they existed in the first place. I appreciate every single one of you who follow me and want to talk more about this stuff. I do intend to put out I'm going to put out a separate, I'm going to put out another video, one last video, where I review the entire season overall. because my next goal is I'm sitting down, I'm finishing my fan edit, but also beginning later, because I have a bunch of stuff to do today, but beginning tomorrow morning, I'm going to take a little bit of time because I actually have a bit of a window of time in my work life outside of here. And I'm going to watch I'm going to sit down for 8 hours. I'm going to sit down for 4 hours because it's not really 8 hours, or 5.5, whatever it ends up being. I'm going to watch the whole thing straight through. And I want to see, I've already seen some people say online, absolutely, this thing holds up if you watch the whole thing straight through now, fine. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to watch the whole thing. I want to see how this fits. And then I'm going to do a video reviewing the entire season. And that's when you're going to get the Know It All Index from me for the whole season. All right, guys, comment below. Let me know what you thought of the show and what you thought of my review, specifically what you thought of the show, though. Would love to have that conversation with you. Oh, Discourse is always open. Keep it friendly. Also keep it respectful, and I will do the same. Otherwise, I love you guys. This here's the playlist for the entire season so far. That was last week's video, and of course, you can always subscribe down there. All right, we'll talk again very soon. Never forget, everyone loves a know-it-all.